Let's be honest, nobody likes to think they're disliked. But the truth is, in today's world, most people won't tell you outright if they don't like you. Instead, they mask their feelings behind smiles that don't reach their eyes, hollow compliments that sting, and polite but empty gestures. Often, the ones who don't like you will go to great lengths to hide their true feelings. Why? Because confrontation is uncomfortable, and sometimes they don't want to deal with the mess of admitting their true emotions. Instead, they let their behavior speak louder than their words. The challenge is, if you don't know how to spot the signs, you might end up wasting precious time and emotional energy on people who aren't genuinely in your corner. Whether it's a coworker, a friend, or even someone in your family, the signs that someone secretly dislikes you can be subtle but powerful. Recognizing these red flags early on can save you from heartache, frustration, and unnecessary drama. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into the 7 hidden signs that someone dislikes you but is trying to keep it under wraps. These signs might not be easy to hear, but once you can spot them, you'll gain clarity and be empowered to protect your peace. Let's get started. Sign 1. Their jokes always target your flaws. Humor is a wonderful thing. It can bring people together, ease tension, and lighten up a room. But when jokes consistently target your insecurities or mistakes, something darker might be at play. We all know that person who just loves to make jokes at your expense, pointing out your quirks or flaws, and then brushing it off with, "I'm just kidding." While a little playful teasing can be fun, when it becomes a pattern, it's no longer innocent. In fact, it's often a disguised way of putting you down. When someone repeatedly uses humor to highlight your weaknesses, they're not being funny, they're being manipulative. It's a subtle way for them to assert dominance, to keep you feeling small while they maintain a position of power. What makes this especially tricky is that it's easy to brush off as harmless fun. After all, we're taught not to be too sensitive or to lighten up when it comes to jokes. But let's be clear, if someone's humor consistently makes you feel worse about yourself, it's a red flag. I remember being in a friendship where the jokes were always at my expense, whether it was about my appearance, the way I spoke, or my personal quirks. The punchline always seemed to land on me. At first, I laughed along, thinking it was all in good fun. But after a while, I realized that these jokes were starting to chip away at my confidence. The more I allowed it, the more it continued. It wasn't until I started to push back, calling out the inappropriate jokes, that I saw a shift. It became clear, those jokes weren't about humor, they were about control. What's important to understand is that true friends don't need to make you the butt of their jokes to feel good about themselves. They'll celebrate your strengths and support you through your weaknesses without making you feel inferior. If you find yourself being the target of constant jokes that sting, take a step back. It's not about whether or not you can take a joke. It's about how much disrespect you're willing to tolerate. If you don't set boundaries, the jokes will continue. They'll escalate, and over time, they can deeply impact your self-esteem. Protect your peace by recognizing when a joke isn't just a joke, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. You deserve to be surrounded by people who lift you up, not those who tear you down for laughs. Sign 2. Their compliments feel more like insults. A compliment should make you feel good, right? But sometimes, compliments can leave you feeling worse than before. Have you ever received a compliment that instead of uplifting you, left you questioning yourself? That's the hallmark of a backhanded compliment, a statement that pretends to be positive but is actually designed to cut you down. For example, Someone might say, "Wow, you did a great job on that project," for someone who's new to this. Or, "You actually look nice today." These types of comments seem positive on the surface, but there's an underlying insult that can't be ignored. They're essentially saying, "I didn't expect you to be capable, and I'm surprised you didn't fail." Backhanded compliments are a subtle form of emotional manipulation. The person offering them is trying to maintain an upper hand, making sure you don't feel too good about yourself while still seeming polite or supportive. It's a power play, a way of reminding you that in their eyes, you're still beneath them no matter what you achieve. I once had a colleague who would always say things like, "You're doing really well," for someone without much experience. At first, I appreciated the compliment, but over time, I began to realize that their comments were designed to undermine my confidence. Instead of feeling proud of my work, I was left wondering whether I was truly as capable as I thought. That's the trap of a backhanded compliment. It disguises insecurity as praise. Here's the important takeaway. You don't have to accept every compliment that comes your way, especially if it makes you feel worse rather than better. You have the right to reject disguised insults and call out those who try to manipulate your feelings under the guise of kindness. Next time someone gives you a compliment that doesn't sit right, don't be afraid to respond with, "Thank you, but what exactly do you mean by that?" Watch how quickly their tone changes when they're forced to explain themselves. At the end of the day, real compliments should lift you up and celebrate your accomplishments without hidden barbs. If someone's praise leaves you feeling small or inadequate, it's time to question their intentions. Surround yourself with people who can genuinely appreciate your strengths without tearing you down. Sign 3. They consistently exclude you from plans. Nothing stings quite like being left out. Whether it's not getting invited to a party, a group hangout, or even a casual dinner, consistent exclusion is one of the clearest signs that someone doesn't value your presence. They might make excuses like, "Oh, we thought you were busy," or "It was a last-minute thing." But the reality is, if they wanted you there, they would have made the effort to include you. Social exclusion is a passive-aggressive tactic that allows people to push you out of their lives without having to confront you directly. It's a way of saying, "You're not important enough to be included," without actually having to say the words. Over time, it can wear you down, making you feel isolated and questioning your worth in the group. I have been in situations where I'd see pictures on social media of friends hanging out at events I wasn't invited to. When I asked about it later, they'd offer vague excuses like, "We didn't think you'd want to come," or "It just happened last minute." But after a few times, it became clear they were intentionally excluding me. It was painful to realize that people I considered friends didn't value my presence as much as I valued theirs. But here's where the empowerment comes in. Once you recognize that you're being excluded, you gain the power to decide how to respond. You can continue to chase after their approval, or you can walk away from relationships that don't serve you. True friends won't leave you out and then offer half-hearted excuses. They'll make sure you're part of the group because they genuinely enjoy your company. If you constantly find yourself on the outside looking in, it's time to take a step back and evaluate whether these relationships are worth your energy. Life is too short to spend time with people who make you feel like an afterthought. Surround yourself with those who celebrate your presence and make you feel valued. Sign 4. They're always busy when it comes to you. We've all heard the phrase, "I'm just so busy right now," and it's a legitimate excuse. Life gets hectic for everyone. But when someone uses this excuse repeatedly, especially when it only seems to apply to you, that's when the red flags start to fly. If they're always busy when you ask to hang out, but have no problem making time for others, it's not about their packed schedule, it's about where their priorities lie. And unfortunately, you're not one of them. This pattern is subtle at first. Maybe you invite them for coffee or suggest catching up over the weekend, and they respond with, "I'm slammed at work right now, maybe next week." You understand because, hey, life can be chaotic. But then you notice something strange. They're constantly posting pictures online of outings with other people. They seem to have plenty of time to meet up with mutual friends, go to parties, or attend social events, but when it comes to you, they're mysteriously unavailable. The truth is, when someone truly values you, they will make time for you. No one is too busy for the people they care about. We all lead busy lives, but relationships, real relationships, require effort. The reality is that when people are invested in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a romantic connection, or even a family bond, they will prioritize you. If someone is always too busy when it comes to you, that's their polite way of saying you're not a priority in their life. It's harsh, but it's the truth. I remember a time when I was constantly reaching out to a friend, trying to make plans, only to hear excuse after excuse about how overwhelmed they were. At first, I was understanding. I didn't want to seem needy or impatient. But then I started noticing that this busy friend was always finding time to hang out with others, attend gatherings, and even travel with mutual friends. The message became clear. They weren't too busy for everyone. They were just too busy for me. It took a while for me to accept that painful truth. We often want to believe the best in people, thinking maybe the timing just isn't right, or maybe they're going through a tough period. But eventually, you have to recognize the pattern. People make time for the things and people that matter to them. It's a simple fact of life. If they aren't making time for you, they are telling you where you stand in their world. What can you do in this situation? First, recognize that your worth doesn't depend on how someone else prioritizes you. Just because they aren't making time for you doesn't mean you're not worthy of their time. It simply means they're not capable or willing to invest in the relationship. And while that might hurt, it also frees you to invest your energy elsewhere, in people who will make time for you, value your presence, and reciprocate your efforts. The next time someone claims to be too busy for you, take a moment to step back and evaluate the relationship. Are they making excuses only when it comes to you, but seem to have no problem fitting others into their life? If so, it might be time to reassess whether this is a relationship worth continuing. Life is too short to chase after people who don't prioritize you. Surround yourself with those who see your value and make time for you, because those are the people who truly care. Sign 5. They avoid physical contact like it's the plague. Physical contact, whether it's a handshake, a hug, or even just sitting close to someone, is one of the most natural ways human beings connect. It's a form of nonverbal communication that builds trust, warmth, and a sense of closeness. So, when someone consistently avoids physical contact with you, it's often more than just a preference for personal space. It can be a clear indicator that they're uncomfortable with you or simply don't want to get closer, literally or emotionally. We've all been there. You go to give a handshake, and the person pulls away quickly, or you lean in for a hug, and they stiffen up. At first, you might brush it off, thinking they're just not the touchy-feely type. But then you notice something. This same person has no problem hugging others, giving pats on the back, or standing close to other people. The avoidance of contact seems specific to you. That's when you realize it's not just about their comfort, with physical touch in general. It's about you. I had a colleague once who always seemed to recoil whenever I reached out for a simple handshake or a friendly pat on the back. At first, I thought it was just their personality. But over time, I began to notice that they were perfectly comfortable with physical contact when it came to others. They'd hug friends warmly, give firm handshakes to new acquaintances, and laugh while casually brushing shoulders with others. But when it came to me, they kept their distance. It didn't take long for me to realize that their avoidance of physical contact was more than just a quirk. It was a deliberate effort to keep me at arm's length. Physical avoidance like this sends a strong signal. It's a way for someone to maintain emotional distance without having to say a word. Sure, there are some people who simply aren't touchy by nature, and that's perfectly fine. But when someone is fine with physical contact around others, but not with you, it's a clear indication that they're uncomfortable with the relationship. In many cases, this avoidance is a reflection of deeper issues. Maybe they don't trust you, or maybe they harbor negative feelings that they don't want to confront. Either way, their body language is doing the talking. They're telling you, "I don't want to get close to you." And while that might sting, it's better to recognize the signs than to ignore them and pretend everything is fine. So, what can you do if someone is constantly avoiding physical contact with you? First, don't take it personally. While it might feel like a direct rejection, it often has more to do with their own issues than with you. People carry their own insecurities, fears, and discomforts, and sometimes that manifests in how they treat others physically. But if you notice this behavior, it's worth considering whether the relationship is as solid as you'd like it to be. Don't be afraid to address the issue. If it's someone close to you, sometimes an open conversation can clear the air and bring clarity to the situation. But remember this: physical connection is an essential part of any meaningful relationship. If someone is consistently avoiding it, they're sending a clear message about where you stand. Pay attention to those cues, and don't be afraid to make tough decisions about who you allow into your personal space, both literally and emotionally. Sign 6. They disappear when you need them the most. There's an old saying, you find out who your true friends are when you're at your lowest. And it's true, nothing reveals the strength of a relationship more than a moment of crisis. When you're going through a rough time, whether it's a personal issue, a loss, or a major life transition, that's when you need your friends and loved ones the most. But what happens when the people you thought would be there for you suddenly disappear? When someone vanishes the moment you need support, it's not just hurtful, it's a betrayal. It shows that they're only interested in being around for the good times, but when things get tough, they're nowhere to be found. And let's be real, if they're not willing to show up for you when you're struggling, they're not truly invested in the relationship. I remember a time when I was dealing with a significant personal issue, one of those life events that shakes you to your core. Naturally, I reached out to a few friends for support, thinking they'd be there for me, like I had been for them in the past. But instead of receiving the care and concern I expected, I was met with silence. Messages went unanswered, calls were ignored, and the few responses I did get were filled with excuses. "I'm swamped at work. I've got a lot going on right now," or the classic, "I'll check in with you later." Spoiler alert, they didn't. That experience taught me an invaluable lesson. People who disappear during your hardest times aren't true friends. True friendship isn't just about having fun together or enjoying each other's company when life is easy. It's about being there when things get messy, uncomfortable, and downright difficult. It's about showing up, even when it's inconvenient, because you care about the person and their well-being. When someone vanishes during your moments of crisis, they're telling you where you stand in their life. They're saying, "Your problems aren't my priority." And while that's painful to accept, it's also freeing. It allows you to see the truth of the relationship and decide whether it's worth continuing. But don't let their absence make you bitter. Let it make you better. Use it as a filter to sift out the people who don't deserve a place in your life. The ones who stick around when the going gets tough, who check in on you, who offer a shoulder to lean on. Those are the people who matter. Those are the relationships worth nurturing. In the end, life is too short to invest in fair-weather friends who only show up when it's convenient for them. Surround yourself with people who will stand by you in the storm, not just bask in the sunshine. Because when you find those rare individuals who stick around when the chips are down, you've found something worth holding on to. Sign 7. They gossip about you behind your back. Gossip. It's one of the most toxic behaviors in any relationship, whether it's a friendship, a romantic partnership, or even a family connection. When someone you trust starts talking behind your back, they're not just sharing a harmless story. They're actively sabotaging your trust, your reputation, and your relationship. And let's be real, if they're gossiping about you, they don't truly respect you. I've been the subject of gossip before, and let me tell you, it's one of the most gut-wrenching experiences you can go through. There was a time when I confided in someone I thought was a close friend. I shared personal stories, opened up about my struggles, and trusted them to keep it between us. But within days, I started hearing those same stories, twisted and exaggerated, circulating among our mutual friends. It was like a game of telephone, except the message wasn't just getting lost, it was being weaponized against me. The betrayal of gossip runs deep because it's done in the shadows. The person gossiping about you never gives you a chance to defend yourself or even know what's being said. They smile to your face while stabbing you in the back, all under the guise of friendship. Here's the truth. People who gossip about others to you will almost certainly gossip about you to others. It's a pattern, not a one-time thing. And when you allow gossip to continue unchecked, you're enabling that behavior. Real friends don't need to talk about you behind your back. They'll address any issues directly with you because they value the relationship enough to be honest. If you find out that someone has been gossiping about you, it's time to distance yourself. You deserve to be around people who respect you, both to your face and behind your back. Gossip isn't just toxic, it's a sign of deeper insecurity and a lack of integrity. And life is too short to be surrounded by people who thrive on tearing others down. At the end of the day, life is too short to waste on people who don't genuinely value you. The signs we've discussed today aren't always easy to spot, but once you start paying attention, they become crystal clear. The truth is, you deserve to be surrounded by people who lift you up, not tear you down. You deserve friends who celebrate your successes, support you through hard times, and treat you with the respect you deserve. If you've recognized any of these signs in your relationships, it's time to reevaluate who you're giving your time and energy to. Don't be afraid to distance yourself from toxic relationships and surround yourself with people who truly value you. Because at the end of the day, your time, energy, and self-worth are far too valuable to be wasted on those who can't see your worth.